Peter Dutton has come out and said, you know what, one of the jobs he will get rid of, should he ever become Prime Minister, is going to be a First Nations ambassador. Now, of course, there's a person who represents... Anyway, this is what he said today.
If it is the case that we win the next election, that position will be abolished on day one. And that money will be spent to help Australians who are struggling at the moment to keep a roof over their head or to pay their electricity bill. We've got higher priorities at the moment.
But of course, Penny Wong says, won't someone think about the international community?
It's disappointing that Mr Dutton doesn't see a role for Indigenous Australians in representing Australia. We see again his character on display. He divides us at home and frankly, he diminishes us in the world.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, Jacinta Price not at all involved in a potential cabinet, let alone other members of the opposition. But Lisa, I read this all the time, right? Now, it's always, generally speaking, I'm going to say something about lefties, but yes, the right wing can do it from time to time as well, right, as they're currently, say, doing with nuclear, which is, well, look what they're doing everything else in the world. Why don't we do what everyone else is doing in the world? Great, cool. Could we have Singapore's tax policy? Could we have New Zealand's GST? Could we have the tobacco laws from Italy? It's not a buffet. And as soon as we start to turn around and say, well, the international community, I mean, we'll just become pariahs if we do this or do that, or in this case, don't have somebody who, yes, represents Indigenous peoples, but does not represent the sovereign state. The sovereign state is the foreign minister.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also think back to when we were having the Voice debate. It was all about, we were being shamed on the international stage because we weren't backing the Voice. Remember those accusations that were being thrown around to all the no voters?
Correct.
That money, rather than going through to cost of living and you know, Australians carte blanche, put it back into the Indigenous communities. Would that not be the argument that you would make? That
yes.
If you were back to the days where you've got Elbow, where he spent the first 16 months of his time in power actually focused on the Voice and not much else. Well, surely now they should be saying, well, let's put more of that money back into those Indigenous communities.
Oh, exactly. And look, to be honest, whatever happens in the next election, that will be the ruling the line underneath the distraction of the focus of the government when cost of living was getting wildly out of control, and they were banging on, of course, about the change to the Constitution. But again, Joe, you've seen plenty of people argue this line, right?
Yep.
Which is how will the international community think about us, right? Now, I'm completely aware that we are in a more connected world than ever before, and we're part of this and we're part of that, and we're not an island that doesn't communicate with the rest of the world, and we don't have histories that need to be doing. Oh, I'm fine with all of that. But the least convincing line about keeping an essentially meaningless ceremonial position is what other countries think of it.
It is the stupidest reason for doing it. I'm sure, well, I hope there are good reasons for having a First Nations ambassador. I mean, I couldn't give a rat's what other countries think of us, except insofar as we're strategically protected from any foreign threats, and we've got a good trading relationship with the people we need to. That's right. It should be all about, the Australian government is not the UN, it is the Australian government. It should be governing in the best interest of Australia.
Don't tell Penny that. She's working it all. She's solving the Middle East.
I mean, if you wanted, that's right. If you wanted, I mean, you would think that the most important role of a First Nations ambassador would be to make representations to the Australian government.
Correct.
Which, of course, is what the Voice was ininitially intended to do.
Don't push it uphill. It's gone, mate.
I know, that's right. But certainly, what was
you lost that one.
What I was told that it was going to be, and so again, if you're going to represent First Nations people in Australia and put their interests front and centre, the people you would want to be talking to are not any other foreign government, but the Australian government. And you would want someone who says things like, this is what's happening in our communities in Alice Springs, this is what's happening in our remote communities, this is what's happening in Wilcannia, these are the things we need, this is what's not working, can we do it this way instead? But look, I mean, the explanation I saw for this guy's roles did seem pretty woolly to me, I have to say. It was in accordance with the strategic alignments and values of our whatever. And
I get it.